Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is talking themselves out of starting. They're convincing themselves they need one more course, one more tool, one more perfect condition before they begin. And while they wait, their idea stays locked inside their head, gathering dust alongside all the other things they meant to do. This is about the most dangerous myth in creativity, the myth of readiness. The belief that there's a magical moment when everything aligns, when you'll finally be prepared enough, skilled enough, certain enough to begin. That moment doesn't exist. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to dismantle the barriers between you and your creative work, not with motivational platitudes or empty inspiration, but with a fundamental shift in how you understand the creative process itself. Because here's the truth, creation and waiting are not sequential. They're opposites. Every moment you spend waiting is a moment you're not creating. And every moment you're not creating, you're reinforcing the very fear that's holding you back. The title of this isn't just a suggestion. Create, don't wait is a philosophy, a practice, and ultimately a way of life that separates those who dream from those who do. Think about the projects you've been postponing, the novel you've been meaning to write, the business you've been planning to start, the painting you've been wanting to create, the song you've been hoping to compose. How long have they been waiting? A month? A year? 5 years? 10? Now imagine if you had started when you first had the idea, even if you only worked on it for 15 minutes a day, even if your first attempts were clumsy and awkward. Where would you be now? How much would you have learned? How much would you have grown? That's not meant to make you feel bad. It's meant to wake you up. Because the same choice that you made then, the choice to wait, is the same choice you're making right now. Unless you decide differently. Unless you decide that today is the day the waiting ends. Let's begin. Part 1. The waiting trap. Understanding why we wait is the first step to breaking free from it. We tell ourselves stories. Beautiful, convincing stories about why now isn't the right time. We say we're waiting for inspiration, but really, we're waiting for certainty. We say we're preparing, but really, we're protecting ourselves from the possibility of failure. The waiting trap has 3 layers, and most people are caught in at least one of them. The first layer is the readiness illusion. This is the belief that you need to be fully skilled before you start, that you need to read all the books, take all the courses, master all the techniques. But here's what actually happens. You start a course, and halfway through, you discover another course that looks even better. You read a book that references 3 other books you haven't read. The horizon of ready keeps moving further away. The readiness illusion is insidious because it feels responsible. It feels like you're being smart, being thorough, being professional. You're not rushing in unprepared, you're doing your due diligence. But what you're actually doing is creating an infinite loop of preparation that never leads to action. Consider this. Every expert you admire was once completely incompetent. They didn't know what they were doing. They made embarrassing mistakes. They created work that made them cringe. But they did it anyway. They learned by doing, not by preparing, to do. The truth? You don't learn to write by studying writing. You learn to write by writing. You don't learn to paint by watching tutorials. You learn to paint by putting paint on canvas. The skill doesn't come before the work. The skill comes from the work. There's a concept called learning by doing that's been validated by countless studies in education and cognitive science. Our brains are wired to learn through action, through trial and error, through feedback loops that only exist when we're actually engaged in the activity. Reading about swimming doesn't teach you to swim. You have to get in the water. And yes, some preparation is useful, but there's a massive difference between useful preparation and procrastination disguised as preparation. Useful preparation has a clear endpoint. I'm going to take this one course and then I'm going to start. Procrastination disguised as preparation has no endpoint. It's an endless buffet of learning that never converts into doing. The second layer is the perfect conditions fallacy. You're waiting for the right time. When you have more money. When you have more time. When the kids are older. When work settles down. When you move to a new place. When the economy improves. When you feel more energized. When the season changes. When you're less stressed. When you're more inspired. But perfect conditions are like a mirage in the desert. They shimmer in the distance, always just ahead, never where you actually stand. Every successful creative you admire created their best work in imperfect conditions, often in terrible conditions. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter as a single mother on welfare, writing in cafes because she couldn't afford to heat her apartment. Stephen King wrote Carrie while living in a trailer and working as a high school janitor. Maya Angelou wrote some of her most powerful work while dealing with trauma and discrimination. Frida Kahlo painted many of her masterpieces while bedridden in pain. The conditions will never be perfect. There will always be something, some obstacle, some challenge, some less than ideal circumstance. If you're waiting for all the obstacles to disappear, you're waiting for something that will never happen. What matters is what you do within the conditions you have. Not the conditions you wish you had, not the conditions other people have. The conditions you actually have, right now, today. And here's something interesting. Constraints often make us more creative, not less. When you have limited time, you stop overthinking and start doing. When you have limited resources, you get resourceful. When you have limited space, you get focused. Perfect conditions can actually make us lazy and unfocused because there's no urgency, no edge, no pressure to push us forward. Some of the most creative periods in history happened during times of constraint. The Harlem Renaissance happened during segregation and economic hardship. Punk rock exploded during economic recession. The innovation of World War II happened under the ultimate constraint. It's survival. The third layer is the permission paradox. Deep down, you're waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to start. A teacher, a mentor, an authority figure, an audience. You're waiting for external validation before you grant yourself internal permission. Maybe you're waiting for someone to tell you you're talented. Maybe you're waiting for someone to believe in you. Maybe you're waiting for proof that you won't fail. Maybe you're waiting for a sign from the universe that this is the right path. But no one is coming to give you that permission. There's no creativity licensing board. No one is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, yes, you're allowed to be an artist now. The gatekeepers are fewer than ever before. You don't need a publisher to write. You don't need a gallery to make art. You don't need a record label to make music. The only permission you need is the permission you give yourself. And yet, this is often the hardest permission to grant. We've been conditioned since childhood to seek external validation, to raise our hand and wait to be called on, to ask permission before we act, to defer to authority. These habits run deep. But creativity doesn't work that way. Creativity is fundamentally an act of self-authorization. It's saying, I have something to express, and I'm going to express it, regardless of whether anyone else thinks I should. This doesn't mean you shouldn't seek feedback or guidance or mentorship. Those things are valuable. But they come after you start, not before. You can't get feedback on work that doesn't exist. You can't find a mentor for a practice you're not practicing. These three layers work together, creating a waiting trap that can last years, decades, a lifetime. And the cruelest part? Waiting feels productive. It feels like you're doing something. You're planning, you're learning, you're preparing, you're thinking about it, you're researching, you're setting up your workspace, you're buying supplies, you're organizing your files, but you're not creating. And without creation, all that preparation is just sophisticated procrastination. The waiting trap is comfortable. It protects you from criticism, from failure, from the vulnerability of putting something imperfect into the world. But it also protects you from growth, from discovery, from the profound satisfaction of making something that didn't exist before you made it. It protects you from rejection, but it also protects you from acceptance. It protects you from harsh feedback, but it also protects you from praise. It protects you from failure, but it also protects you from success. The waiting trap doesn't just steal your present, it steals your future. Every day you wait is a day you're not improving. Every week you wait is a week you're not learning. Every year you wait is a year of potential growth that you'll never get back. So how do we escape it? By understanding one fundamental principle. Creation is the only way forward. Not planning to create, not thinking about creating, not learning about creating. Creating. Part 2. The power of starting badly. There's a concept in pottery that illuminates everything about the creative process. A ceramics teacher divided their class into two groups. The first group would be graded solely on quantity. They needed to produce as many pots as possible. Weight would determine their grade. 50 pounds of pots got an A, 40 pounds a B, and so on. The second group would be graded on quality. They only needed to make one pot, but it had to be perfect. The best pot they could possibly create. At the end of the semester, something remarkable happened. The highest quality pots all came from the quantity group, while the quality group spent their time theorizing about perfection, reading about technique, and planning their single perfect pot. The quantity group was busy making pot after pot, and with each one, they learned. They failed faster. They discovered what worked through doing, not through thinking. This is the power of starting badly. Your first draft will be terrible. Your first painting will be embarrassing. Your first song will be cringe-worthy. Your first business pitch will be awkward. Your first public speech will be nerve-wracking. Your first design will be clumsy, and that's exactly as it should be. Because that terrible first attempt is infinitely more valuable than a perfect attempt that never happens. That embarrassing painting teaches you more than a beautiful painting you only imagined. That cringe-worthy song gets the bad ideas out of your system so the good ones can emerge. Starting badly means giving yourself permission to be a beginner. We live in a culture that worships expertise and mocks novices. Social media shows us only the highlight reels, the finished products, the polished performances. We never see the thousands of hours of clumsy experimentation that came before. We see the Olympic gymnast sticking the perfect landing. We don't see the 1,000 falls that taught her balance. We see the best-selling novel. We don't see the drawer full of rejected manuscripts. We see the viral video. We don't see the 100 videos that nobody watched. This creates a distorted perception of the creative process. We think that talented people just naturally create good work, that they woke up one day with the ability to write beautifully, or paint masterfully, or perform brilliantly. But that's not how it works. Talent, to the extent it exists at all, is just a slight head start. What actually matters is the willingness to be bad long enough to become good. But every master was once a disaster. Every expert was once incompetent. Every professional was once an amateur who kept going. The only difference between them and the people who gave up is that they were willing to be bad long enough to become good. They were willing to endure the discomfort of incompetence. They were willing to fail in front of people. They were willing to create work that didn't meet their own standards. And here's the paradox. The faster you're willing to fail, the faster you succeed. Because every failure is data. Every mistake is feedback. Every bad attempt shows you what doesn't work, which is just as valuable as knowing what does work. Think of it like exploring a maze. You could stand at the entrance, studying the maze, trying to mentally map the perfect route. Or you could walk in and start trying paths. Yes, you'll hit dead ends. Yes, you'll have to backtrack, but you'll learn the layout of the maze through experience, not theory. And you'll get to the exit much faster than the person who's still standing at the entrance planning. There's a phrase that captures this perfectly. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Every day you wait is another day you're not progressing. Every day you postpone starting is another day you're not getting those early failures out of the way. But let's expand on that metaphor. If you plant a tree today, it won't bear fruit immediately. It might take years. But if you never plant it, it will definitely never bear fruit. And the tree planted today will always be further along than the tree you think about planting tomorrow. Your creative journey is the same. The work you start today won't be great immediately, but it will be infinitely further along than the work you keep planning to start someday. Because here's the secret. You have a certain number of bad paintings inside you, a certain number of terrible songs, a certain number of awkward performances, a certain number of failed attempts, and you need to get them out. They're standing between you and the good work. The only way through them is through them. This is what I call the creative quota. Imagine that you have to create 100 pieces before you make something truly good. That number might be 50, it might be 500, but there's some number. And every bad piece you create brings you closer to that number. Every failure is progress towards success. The people who never create anything good aren't less talented. They're just not willing to create enough bad things. They create 5 things, those things aren't very good, and they conclude they're not talented. But maybe they needed to create 50 things. They quit 90% of the way to discovering their voice. Starting badly also means starting small. You don't need to write a novel. Write a paragraph. You don't need to compose a symphony. Compose a melody. You don't need to launch a business, create one product. You don't need to record an album. Record one song. You don't need to paint a masterpiece. Paint a study. Small starts have a momentum of their own. One paragraph leads to another. One melody suggests a harmony. One product teaches you about production. One song shows you what you need to learn. One study reveals something about light or color or composition. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but more importantly, the second step begins with the first step. Each action makes the next action easier. Each creation makes the next creation more natural. Each start reinforces your identity as someone who starts. There's also less pressure in starting small. A paragraph can be bad without it meaning much. But if you've committed to a novel and it's bad, that feels like a bigger failure. So start with low stakes. Create things that don't matter. Experiments, sketches, drafts, playtesting, prototypes. The fear of starting badly keeps more dreams locked away than any external obstacle ever could. It's not lack of time or money or opportunity that stops most people. It's the inability to tolerate being a beginner. It's the unwillingness to be temporarily incompetent. It's the resistance to creating something that doesn't match the vision in their head. But what if you reframed it? What if being bad at something wasn't a shameful secret but an exciting opportunity? It means you're learning. It means you're growing. It means you're on the path. It means you're doing something that matters enough to be worth being bad at. No one is bad at things they don't care about. You're not worried about being bad at juggling chainsaws because you have no interest in juggling chainsaws. The things you're afraid of being bad at are the things that actually matter to you. So being bad at them is evidence that you're pursuing something meaningful. And here's something to remember. Everyone who sees your bad work is seeing only that piece, but you're seeing it in the context of all your hopes and dreams and potential. To you, it represents the gap between where you are and where you want to be. To them, it's just a thing that exists. Their perspective is actually more accurate than yours. Start badly. Start messy. Start incomplete. Start scared. Start uncertain. Start with the wrong tools. Start in the wrong place. Start at the wrong time. Just start. Because a bad start beats a perfect plan that never begins. Part 3. The myth of inspiration. Let's talk about one of the most destructive myths in creative culture. The myth of inspiration. We've been sold this romantic image of the artist waiting for the muse, staring out the window, taking long walks, sitting in coffee shops, waiting for that lightning bolt of inspiration that will compel them to create their masterpiece. The vision that arrives fully formed, the idea that demands to be expressed. It's a beautiful image. It's also completely backwards. Inspiration doesn't lead to creation. Creation leads to inspiration. Professional writers don't wait for inspiration. They write whether they feel inspired or not. Professional musicians don't wait for the muse. They practice scales whether they feel like it or not. Professional artists don't wait for perfect vision. They show up to the studio and start working with what they have. Professional entrepreneurs don't wait for the perfect idea. They start solving problems and iterate. And here's what happens. Once they start, inspiration finds them. The act of creating generates its own momentum. The first word suggests the second. The first brushstroke suggests the second. The first note suggests the melody. The first line of code reveals the architecture. The first conversation reveals the product. Inspiration is not a prerequisite for work. Inspiration is a product of work. Think about it this way. You don't wait until you're hungry to eat. You don't wait until you feel like showering to maintain hygiene. You don't wait until you're inspired to brush your teeth. You do these things on a schedule because they're important, regardless of how you feel about them in the moment. Kids, why would creation be any different? The amateur creates when they feel like it. The professional creates whether they feel like it or not. And paradoxically, the professional ends up feeling like it more often, because they have trained themselves to enter the creative state through action, not through waiting. Let's talk about what inspiration actually is. It's not some mystical force that descends from the heavens. It's a state of focused attention combined with pattern recognition. It's your brain making connections between things you've learned, experienced, or observed. And here's the key. Your brain can't make those connections if you're not engaged in the work. When you're actively creating, you're priming your brain to notice relevant information. You're activating the networks that recognize patterns. You're signaling to your unconscious mind, this is what we're working on. Help me solve this. That's why ideas seem to come in the shower, or on walks, or right before you fall asleep. Not because those are magical times, but because your brain has been working on the problem in the background. But it can only work on problems you've actually engaged with. You don't get ideas about novels you haven't started writing. You get ideas about novels you're in the middle of writing. This is about understanding the relationship between mood and behavior. We assume that our feelings dictate our actions. I feel motivated, therefore I act. I feel inspired, therefore I create. The feeling comes first, the action follows. But it works the other way too, often more powerfully the other way. I act, therefore I feel motivated. I create, therefore I feel inspired. The action comes first, and the feeling follows. Action creates emotion. Behavior creates mood. The simple act of starting changes your internal state. Sitting down at the keyboard changes something in your brain. Picking up the brush changes your perception. Beginning the warm-up routine shifts your entire psychology. Opening the software activates the work mindset. Psychologists call this behavioral activation. It's a cornerstone of cognitive behavioral therapy. If you wait until you feel like doing something, you might wait forever. But if you do the thing, the feeling often follows. Not always, but often enough that it's a much better strategy than waiting. This is the secret that professionals know and amateurs don't. You don't need to feel like doing it. You just need to do it. The feeling follows. Or it doesn't, and you still have something to show for it. And on the days when the feeling doesn't follow, you still have something to show for it. A paragraph, a sketch, a recording, a prototype, a conversation, a line of code, progress, however small. And tomorrow, when inspiration does show up, you're already in motion, you're already warmed up, you're already creating. There's also a compounding effect here. The more consistently you create without waiting for inspiration, the more often inspiration shows up, because you've trained your brain that this is when we work. You've established a pattern, you've created a ritual. Your brain starts preparing before you even sit down. Athletes know this. They don't wait until they feel like training. They train on schedule, and their bodies adapt. After a while, their bodies start preparing for the workout before it happens. Heart rate increases, muscles warm up, focus sharpens, all because the pattern has been established. Your creative work is the same. If you write every morning at 7, your brain starts generating ideas around 7. If you paint every evening after dinner, your visual perception shifts during that time. The ritual trains the response. Waiting for inspiration is giving control of your creative life to random chance. It's outsourcing your agency to your moods, which are influenced by 1,000 factors you can't control. What you ate, how you slept, what you read, who you talked to, the weather, your blood sugar, whether you exercised, whether you're fighting a cold. If you only create when all those factors align perfectly to produce the feeling of inspiration, you'll create very rarely. And infrequently created work doesn't build momentum. It doesn't develop. You're always starting cold, always warming up from scratch. Taking action regardless of inspiration is claiming sovereignty over your creative life. It's saying, I create because I've decided to create. Not because some external force has permitted me to. I'm in charge here. Not my mood, not my circumstances. Me. This is empowering. It's also terrifying, because it means you can't blame the lack of inspiration. You can't say, I would create if only I felt inspired. You have to face the real obstacles, fear, uncertainty, the discomfort of not knowing where you're going. But that's also liberating, because those obstacles are within your control. You can work with fear, you can tolerate uncertainty, you can sit with discomfort. You can't conjure inspiration, but you can show up anyway. Here's a practical approach. Create first, edit with inspiration. Show up and make something, anything, even if it feels forced, even if it feels uninspired. Get the raw material down. Then, when inspiration does visit, you have something to work with. You can revise, refine, reshape, but you can't revise a blank page. Many writers will tell you their best work comes in the editing. The first draft gets the ideas out. The second draft, when they're feeling more inspired, is where the magic happens. But the second draft can't exist without the uninspired first draft. Create first. Inspiration will catch up. And if it doesn't, you've still created, which is infinitely better than waiting for a feeling that might never come. Part 4. The compound effect of consistency. Here's a mathematical truth that applies to creativity. Small actions, repeated consistently, create extraordinary results. If you improve by just 1% every day, you're not 1% better at the end of the year. You're 37 times better. That's the power of compound growth. It seems impossible, but the math is solid. Small improvements don't add up, they multiply. But this only works if you're actually doing the thing. Thinking about writing every day for a year doesn't make you a writer. Writing every day for a year transforms you completely. Thinking about practicing guitar every day leaves you where you started. Practicing guitar every day, even for 15 minutes, makes you a musician. The compound effect of consistency operates on 3 levels. First, the skill level. Every time you practice, you improve. Not dramatically, not noticeably, but microscopically. One word choice becomes slightly better. One brushstroke becomes slightly more confident. One note becomes slightly cleaner. One decision becomes slightly wiser. These micro improvements are invisible in the moment, but over weeks and months and years, they accumulate into mastery. It's like watching a plant grow. You can't see it happening in real time. But check it after a week, after a month, after a year, and the growth is undeniable. Your skills are the same. Each session feels roughly the same. But compare your work today to your work from 6 months ago, and you'll be amazed at the difference. This is also why people quit, because the daily improvement is imperceptible. You practice today, and you're not noticeably better tomorrow. So your brain concludes, this isn't working. But your brain is wrong. It's working. It's just working so gradually that you can't perceive it day to day. You need a longer timeline. You need to trust the process. You need to understand that the work you do today won't pay off today. It will pay off in 3 months, 6 months, a year. But it will pay off if you stay consistent. Second, the identity level. Every time you show up, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. One workout doesn't make you an athlete, but it makes you the type of person who works out. One page doesn't make you a writer, but it makes you the type of person who writes. One meditation session doesn't make you mindful, but it makes you the type of person who meditates. These votes accumulate. Eventually, your actions become your identity. You don't have to convince yourself to create. You don't have to motivate yourself. You just create, because that's who you are. That's what you do. This is the difference between outcome-based identity and action-based identity. Outcome-based identity says, I'll be a writer when I publish a book. Action-based identity says, I'm a writer because I write. One is fragile and dependent on external validation. The other is robust and entirely within your control. You can be a writer today. Right now. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need any credentials. You just need to write. And if you write consistently, the identity becomes unshakable. It doesn't matter if you've published. It doesn't matter if anyone reads your work. You write, therefore you're a writer. This identity shift changes everything. It changes how you spend your time. It changes what opportunities you notice. It changes what risks you're willing to take. It changes how you introduce yourself. It changes how you think about yourself when no one's watching. Third, the creative level. Every piece you create teaches you something that informs the next piece. Your work develops in conversation with itself. Ideas breed other ideas. Techniques suggest variations. Style emerges not from planning, but from doing, repeatedly, until patterns emerge. You can't plan your creative voice. You can't decide what your style will be. You discover it through the work. You create piece after piece, and gradually themes emerge. Preferences reveal themselves. A signature style develops, not because you chose it, but because it chose you. This is what it means to find your voice. You don't find it by searching. You find it by creating. The voice is revealed through the work, not before the work. But consistency is hard. Our brains aren't wired for it. We're wired for novelty and immediate gratification. We're wired to do things when we feel like it, not according to a schedule. We're wired to pursue rewards that are immediate and certain, not rewards that are delayed and uncertain. This is why New Year's resolutions fail. Gym memberships go unused. Creative projects get abandoned. The initial burst of motivation fades, and we return to our baseline behavior, unless we build systems. This is where systems become more important than goals. A goal is, I want to write a novel. A system is, I write 500 words every morning before work. The goal might motivate you initially, but the system is what actually gets you there. The goal is the destination. The system is the vehicle. Goals are about outcomes. Systems are about processes. And you can't control outcomes. You can only control the process. You can't control whether your novel gets published, whether it sells, whether critics like it. But you can control whether you write today, whether you show up, whether you do the work. Goals also have a problem. They're binary. You either achieve them or you don't. And if you don't, you feel like a failure. But systems can't fail. You either follow your system today or you don't. If you don't, you follow it tomorrow. The system continues. There's no failure, only feedback. The beautiful thing about systems is that they remove decision fatigue. You're not negotiating with yourself every day about whether to create. You've already decided. The system decides for you. You just show up and do what the system requires. This is why successful creatives often have elaborate rituals. Not because rituals are magical, but because they create consistency. They remove friction. They transform creation from a decision into a habit. Maya Angelou rented a hotel room and wrote there from 7 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, every day. Hemingway wrote standing up. Haruki Murakami wakes at 4 a.m., writes for 5 hours, then runs 10 kilometers. These rituals aren't superstitions, they're systems that guarantee consistency. Start small with your system. Ridiculously small. Don't commit to writing for 2 hours a day if you haven't been writing at all. Commit to 10 minutes. Don't commit to painting a canvas every day. Commit to making one mark. Don't commit to composing a full song. Commit to playing 5 minutes of scales. The size of the commitment matters less than the consistency of showing up, because once you show up, something magical happens. 10 minutes often becomes 30. One mark often becomes a session. 5 minutes of scales often becomes an hour of composition. The hardest part is starting. Once you're in motion, staying in motion is much easier. Newton's first law applies to creativity. Objects in motion stay in motion. Objects at rest stay at rest. The friction of starting is much higher than the friction of continuing. And if you miss a day, don't miss 2. That's the only rule. 1 missed day is life happening. 2 missed days is a pattern forming. 3 missed days is a broken system. Don't break the chain. Consistency also compounds your relationship with your work. The more regularly you engage with your creative practice, the more familiar it becomes. It stops feeling like this big, intimidating thing you have to psyche yourself up for. It becomes just what you do, like brushing your teeth, like your morning coffee, like the normal rhythm of your life. And that's when the real growth happens. When creation stops being this special event that requires perfect conditions and becomes just part of who you are. When you stop having to motivate yourself because the action is automatic. When you stop having to make time because the time is already allocated. The compound effect of consistency is the closest thing to magic in the creative process. Small actions, repeated daily, with no immediate visible results. But given time, they create transformations that look like miracles to people who didn't see the daily work. People see the finished novel and think, they're so talented. They don't see the 1,000 mornings of showing up. People see the gallery exhibition and think, they're a natural. They don't see the 10 years of daily practice. People see the successful business and think, they're lucky. They don't see the hundreds of failures and iterations. Consistency is the invisible force behind visible success. It's the difference between dabbling and mastery. It's the difference between intentions and results. It's the difference between who you want to be and who you actually become. Don't wait for the perfect streak. Start an imperfect one. Today. Even if you missed yesterday, Even if you've failed before, even if you're starting over for the 100th time, start. Because every streak starts with day one. Every transformation starts with one decision. Every master started as a beginner who showed up. Part 5. Overcoming the paralysis of perfectionism. Perfectionism wears many masks. Sometimes it looks like high standards. Sometimes it looks like attention to detail. Sometimes it looks like caring about quality. Sometimes it looks like professionalism. Sometimes it looks like integrity. But underneath, perfectionism is fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being seen as inadequate, fear of not measuring up, fear of being exposed as a fraud. And perfectionism, more than perhaps anything else, is what makes people wait. The perfectionist thinks, I won't start until I can do it right. But right is a moving target. It's undefined. It's unattainable. The perfectionist thinks, I won't share this until it's perfect. But perfect never arrives. There's always something more to fix, something more to improve. The perfectionist thinks, I'll wait until I'm better. But better only comes from doing the thing imperfectly, repeatedly. Perfectionism is a trap disguised as a virtue. It poses as caring about excellence when really it's avoiding vulnerability. It pretends to be about standards when really it's about protection. It masquerades as professionalism when really it's about fear. Here's the difference between healthy standards and toxic perfectionism. Healthy standards pull you forward. Toxic perfectionism holds you back. Healthy standards say, I'm going to do my best with what I have right now. I'm going to push myself. I'm going to stretch my abilities, but I'm also going to ship this thing, share this thing, complete this thing. Perfectionism says, my best isn't good enough. So why bother? If I can't make it perfect, I won't make it at all. Healthy standards say, I'll improve with each iteration. This is version 1. Version 2 will be better because I'll have learnt from version 1. Perfectionism says, it needs to be perfect the first time. There is no version 1. There's only the perfect version, which I haven't created yet, so I have nothing to show. Healthy standards say, done is better than perfect. A completed imperfect thing is more valuable than an incomplete perfect thing. Perfectionism says, if it can't be perfect, it shouldn't exist. Better no thing than an imperfect thing. The antidote to perfectionism is embracing the concept of good enough, not mediocrity, not carelessness, not laziness, but recognizing that there's a point where continuing to refine something generates diminishing returns. Good enough means you've put in honest effort, you've applied what you know, you've created something that serves its purpose. You've reached a point where further refinement would require disproportionate time for minimal improvement. And then you let it go. Because here's what perfectionism really costs you.